Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Spawn Nudie. I'm Spontaneous One. Welcome back to another D&D concept video. Yeah. So this name I've used a couple different ones for. The items stay the same pretty much, but I've called it the Divine Telescope before. My players have referred to it as the DM's Eyes. I've called it God's View before. I've given it a couple different names. Uh, I'll kind of explain it to you, so you can see if you want to use it in another session, or bring it up to your DM saying, hey, this is a magical item that I think I could use. So, what God's View or the Divine Telescope does is whatever you're trying to focus on, you look through the telescope and it will show you it. That's very general. Um, so it can't find like objects. So if you're looking for a key, it can't show you where the key is. But if you like look on a map and you find a place you want to see, you then look through the telescope and you get a telescope view of whatever you're trying to see is. It works very well with the map, and I usually have a requirement of it be you have to look on a map to find where it's at. But if you're like a tavern owner or your characters own a castle or something of the sorts, they can then look on that or look on it whenever they've gone away. And let's say they visited the castle before, they've heard of the castle, then they can see it by just looking through the telescope. I do have some requirements for it. Usually, I make you look into it for about 30 seconds before you get a view. And you have to have concentration on this, so it's not something you really can do during combat. But if you're like free time or traveling, then it's just a very simple item. I only did that for combat reasons, um, and I can give the explanation to that. It's not an issue. Um, we had a big bad fighting, and he said he had their castle sieged because it was a very long campaign, and they ended up getting some property. They put a castle on there, and he said he had taken over and destroyed the castle, killing all their servants, killing all their friends and family who were living in there. Um, well, they just looked through it and saw that the castle was fine and that the big bad was lying. Well, I didn't like that, so that's why I gave it the 30-second requirement, because that's just 5 turns of combat. And if you ask anyone who's played a spellcaster, it's hard to keep concentration for 5 turns. Plus, your actual turn should be spent helping the party instead of just looking through the looking glass, which is actually funny enough. Another name that I've given it, just the looking glass. You can go by really any name. It's just the concept's really neat for like if your party wants to scope out an area and a normal telescope isn't far enough, like isn't able to magnify it enough. Um, be ready for your players to do some really weird stuff. You can't really break it because you can't target like a person or an item. It has to be a place that you have some level of knowledge on. And sometimes you can do like a history check if they're like wanting to find a historical place. Or sometimes you can do an insight check to see how well they know about it. Because the better they know about it, the more likely I would just allow them to do it. Using the item doesn't take a roll, but sometimes you need a roll to see how well they know about the thing. And if you do make them roll, there's a couple good penalties you could do if they fail. You could have them get blindness in an eye. You could have them get a black eye, which really doesn't do much. It's just kind of a funny point to like, oh, my eye's injured. Um, I've had it where it's taken an eye before. You usually don't want to do that one because it's kind of hard to get an eye back. Yeah. But like temporarily losing sight, giving the character blindness, there's some really good things. We had one character who failed a roll. I don't make him roll very often, so this is one of my very few stories. Um, but they wanted it to be a difficult campaign, still gave him that item, so I then made him roll for it. Well, the character then decided to roll to use it to have it happen, and the character ended up losing its eyesight. Well, not in the way that they thought. Everything was blurry to them, and they got very confused. I pretty much just made that character have to wear glasses. Yeah, they called it a curse. It wasn't actually, but it's funny. There's a lot of things you can do with this, and it's just a fun item that it's just utility. They don't need it. No campaign genuinely needs this item. It just makes them feel better and can kind of help move the story along. Hey, they look at the castle that an evil vampire is supposed to be at, and they see it being sieged by a mob of people. Then the next day they see the castle's perfectly fine. Well, now they really want to investigate that castle, see what happened. They looked at a wall protecting a city, and when they looked at it, the city was destroyed. Now they really want to go there. It's a good way to kind of push them to go to certain areas without forcing them to, because they'll just look at it and just be like, hey, let's look at this. Oh, something's happened. Let's go there. It can really help with story and make them feel like it's more their idea over your idea, which can then give the players more of a better sense of autonomy instead of just being forced to go through your story. Hopefully you enjoy the item. Thank you guys. Bye.